Welcome back, Salvonan. In the past episodes, we spoke a lot about a name for this show, and it's something that we have been trying to figure out. I'm happy to report back to you to say that there are several suggestions that have come through, and one of the names that is standing out for me is something that I think this name, it represents what we actually want to achieve, what we are trying to achieve in this show. And I will be sharing with you that name, and I'll be happy to receive your comments down below as to whether I think it's a good name or whether I think we should look for another one. And this name is incrementality of growth. So that's what we think. The objective of the show is to grow. The objective of the show is to increase our mentality of growth. Growth in terms of wealth. And the definition of wealth is quite rich. Wealth does not just mean the dollar amount that is in your account or the assets that you have. It also means the soft skills, the person whom you are at work, in your relationships, and everywhere you go. So that is what I think that name represents, what we are trying to achieve here. And tell me what you think about it. So today in the past weeks, we've been talking about finances, we've been talking about investing in a country like Zimbabwe, in a hyper-inflationary environment. But I do recognize that some of the people that are watching are not necessarily from Zimbabwe. You may be Zimbabweans wherever you are, but the issue is not about Zimbabwe per se, because the issue is, what are the opportunities in that environment that you are working with? Zimbabwe remains a situation, remains a country, remains a destination for capital, and there may be challenges to do with policy, challenges to do with consistency in terms of policy, as many of you have pointed out to me before, and I've said I do agree with you. So now, in line with the name that we have, that I think should be our name, I would really want to get the feedback in the comment section below. But for now, in line with that name, today we are going to talk about something slightly different from finances. It is within finance, and it is within the growth mentality that we are trying to achieve. And today we are talking about what the skills that you need as an individual. 1, to get hired. 2, to keep that job. And when I say that job, when I say get hired, I just don't mean being hired as an employee, because you can be hired in so many different. You may be a consultant. So when you apply for a job as a consultant, you are hired. You may be a contractor, for example. When you tender for a job, you are hired. And just getting the job is one aspect, but keeping the job is something else. Then continuing to achieve results and continuing to be hired is another thing. So today we are going to talk, they say hard skills. You go to school, for example, someone who can call me a chartered accountant, or whatever skills that I have, a coach, whatever. Those many different skills that I've acquired in school. Those are hard skills that I attained, that I read for, that I studied for. They are hard skills. But for me to achieve who I am today, it has been soft skills. And it's very important for us to know that soft skills keep the job for you. Hard skills give you the job. Soft skills keep the job, 1, 2, they also get you promoted. So, like I said, there are different types of jobs. One is the employment, 8 to 5. Second is the entrepreneur. You go into an entity and you want to do something for them. You also get hired. If you want to get a job, you do a resume or your CV. If you want to tender for a job, you do a company profile. All these 2 things, what they're trying to do is to sell yourself, and the things that you highlight in those 2 things, a profile or an individual profile or your resume, whatever, the things that you are highlighting and that are your hard skills, the things that you have achieved, the accolades that you have, and those things gets you to be noticed by the person who's hiring. I've sat in an interviewing panel before. I've also sat in a procurement committee before in my career. And those are the items that we look for. You look at this company profile, you look at what they've done, you look at their references, you look at their competencies, you look at the people within the skills that they say they have. Then you verify those skills. And the same thing when you're hiring someone. You look, do they have a degree? Do they have whatever the skills that you require for that job? What are their experiences? And then you invite these people for interviews and all that. All you're trying to do is to verify, to find out if they are a role fit for you. Now, today's topic. Today we are talking about the soft skills. There are 11 skills actually, according to me, that you can have, that you should have for you to get promoted, for you to keep a job, for you to achieve results in an entity. And today, the first one that we are talking about is communication. And under communication, I want to talk about listening. I've heard so many people talk about what they call active listening. Some call it, there's also what is called reflective listening. So there are different types of listening. But what I want to focus on is, what is it that you do when you listen? What is listening? What is the difference between listening and hearing? Because that is very important. A lot of us, we mistake hearing for listening. Like right now, you all hear me, but are you listening to me? It's very important for that distinction in your mind, because it's very important in your own job to be actively distinguishing between listening and hearing. The truth is, if I walk into town right now, I'll hear a lot of sounds. A motor vehicle passing, I'll hear a siren for an ambulance, and all these things. This is just noise that is coming through my ears, and that's hearing. I've heard people in arguments, they say, I hear you. Hearing is something that is done by your ears. Listening is something that is done by your mind. By your mind, I repeat. What do I mean? You have no option. You have no option. You hear that sound. But you do have an option to process the sound and then ask, who flicked their hands? Now you have listened. Now you have identified the sound. It's flicking. What it means is you have listened. So this is the problem that we have in a workplace, in relationships, because that is why a lot of us fail in our relationships fail in our workplace, in a workplace environment. Why? Because we fail to see the difference. We fail to listen. Listening means you hear the sound, you process the sound, you identify or you sit down to think, what does this mean? You seek to understand what it means. So many times I've been in meetings, and you get into this meeting and you see that just as you get into the meeting, just as you start that meeting, or maybe it's a negotiation or whatever it is, you see that people already have positions. And you look at the person that you are negotiating with, or the person that you are having a discussion with, you look at their posture. They look impatient, for example. And when you're saying something, they can't wait for you to stop or to keep quiet. What it means for them is, whatever you're saying, they're saying, I hear what you're saying, but you need to hear me first. You need to understand things from my point of view. So in a workplace environment, it's very important for you to listen to your colleagues. In a relationship, it's very important to listen to your partners. Be it marriage, be it friendship. It's very important for you to listen and understand what they mean. What is it that this person is trying to communicate? There's a time in the past when someone was teaching me about listening, and they taught me what they call reflective listening. In this method of reflective listening, what we do is, someone says something to you, like someone would say, Tatenda, maybe let's just say, Tatenda, I love you. That's what they say. So in reflective listening, you then say, Tatenda, you said, Tatenda, I love you. In other words, you try to repeat to that person. What you're doing is you're reflecting back to them, just like a mirror. You're reflecting back to them what you understood. I heard you say, Tatenda, I love you. Is that correct? So what it means is, you won't miss, there's nothing that is lost when you reflect back to the person. I'm not saying we must do reflective listening, but we must employ it in certain conversations. Because let's say you're talking to your superior at work. You don't want anything lost in translation. You can reflect back to them. But be careful when you reflect back to a person. Someone can take it personal, or someone can think that you're being stupid if they don't understand what you're trying to do. So you have to be careful how you reflect. But it's just a method of listening, where you reflect back to the person. What you're simply trying to do is to understand, to also confirm from them what they said. In the meantime, you're also processing what it means to you. How does that help us? It avoids arguments. I've seen so many times in arguments that people end up not agreeing with each other simply because they cannot hear, they cannot listen, they cannot hear what the person is saying. They can hear the voice, they can hear the words, but they can't fathom, they can't get to the point. I've seen people say, you can't hear me, just listen to what I'm saying. In a workplace environment, in a relationship, your point of view remains your point of view. That other person's point of view remains their point of view. But for you to understand, you need to listen to them. What it avoids is it avoids mistakes. It also avoids conflicts. Why? Because you can't be in conflict with the person if you understood what they say. I normally refer to what my grandmother used to say to me. he would give you an instruction. He would say, go and do ABC, ABCD, whatever. And then sometimes the instruction is not as clear as you thought. And then this is what he would then say. When you perform the instruction, there are certain issues that you would not have understood, and then you apply your own thinking in that instruction. And when you come back, he would then say, why did you do this? But that was not my instruction. And then you'd say, I thought this was the correct way to say. And his response all the time was, why did you think? Whilst growing up, it was perplexing for me, and I was saying, does this guy honestly think that I must not think? Until I realized what those words meant. Those words meant, when you were saying, why did you think? He was simply asking. Your job was not to think. Your job was to verify from me. Your job was to listen to my instruction. A lot of us, we fail to get those promotions. A lot of us, we fail to get those jobs that we want, simply because we cannot listen, simply because we cannot verify, simply because we think we are smart. You may be smart, yes. You may actually be smarter than your boss. You may actually be smarter than your partner. But never, ever outshine your master. Always reflect back to them. Always listen to them. Listen to your colleagues. It avoids conflict with them. I think that's enough for today. Never outshine your master. I read that in 48 Laws of Power. I think that's a very important lesson for us. Because we may think that we are smart. We may think that we are smarter. Yes, we may be. But remember the person giving the instruction. Because if you want to avoid a fight with them, do things according to the way that they want done. If you think that you've got a better way, listen to them. Understand where they are coming from. And then when you are done, when you understand, only if you understand can you then go back to them and approach them and then offer what you may think is a better way of doing things. That way you have avoided. You go to them, you show them that you understand how things should be done according to them. But then you think that there may be a shorter way to do it, or there may be a better way to do it that saves costs or that saves time, whatever reason that you may have. So that's it for today. Thank you. Continue to like, to share, and to subscribe. Thank you. Have a good night.